What's up, everybody? It's Elan Jones, and today I want to talk a little bit about the fact that Anonymous Black Man and Lightskin Motivations channel is gone, and some other things. So, I just discovered that recently. Now, this is not an I told you so. This won't be anything petty because I'm not a petty person, but I do want to say that when you knowingly and willingly continue to do things that you've been made aware that aren't the best things to do, the right things to do, there are consequences. And I know that sometimes in life, things happen to you, there are consequences for you, and it seems like the people who are committing the most egregious acts get away with what they get away with. That things are just so smooth for them and they are just allowed to do the most terrible things. Yet you can't get away with anything, you know? It's because you're held to a higher standard. What I want you guys to know, though, is that it doesn't matter what people like this do. And I'm not just talking about them, I'm talking about all of the colorism channels. Because at this point in time, it's either channels that are against light-skinned people and are all working towards turning this into Nazi Germany for light-skinned people because they use the same techniques. So it's either those types of videos or it's light-skinned people trying to retaliate in the same exact way. At the end of the day, the truth will prevail. People who are evil, things that happen that are evil, may seem like it lasts for a long time. It may seem like it's popular, and usually it is. It's way more popular than the truth or what's right. It always starts out that way. It's more popular than the truth. It's more attractive than the truth. It's more deceiving, even though the truth doesn't deceive, but it's deceiving, it's persuasive, it's more attractive than the truth. It's more overwhelming than the truth. But the truth always prevails. In this case, the truth about what light-skinned people are actually going through, which is pretty bad, and this is at the hands of their own people who look different from them, right? Deeper toned family members who have turned against lighter skinned family members and who are doing things behind the scenes to hurt and destroy the lives of lighter skinned family members, because we are family. These things are going to come to light. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how slow the progress is. This is how it always goes when good is trying to speak out against evil. People who have started this whole colorism movement, people who have started these anti-light-skinned people campaigns, people who created channels and who created videos against light-skinned people who are participating in destroying their image and hurting them, they may continue to be able to do so. It may even be for a while longer, but in the end, it always ends the same. The point of this entire video, though, is to tell you that the way you handle things is the most important factor. How you handle overwhelming evil in your life that is directed towards you. Overwhelmingly evil things and people that are affecting your life in a specific way, that are specifically affecting you. This video is hopefully going to bring some comfort to you. Now, in this video, I will be talking about spirituality. I'm not the type to push religion or spirituality even, or God or anything like that onto people, because we're all different, and it could be this enigmatic or nebulous, or I'm not sure what word to use, but it could be this really unclear thing. If you're not a spiritual person, I would imagine you at least believe that there is good and there is bad in the world. I would assume that you at least believe in that dichotomy. So today I want to read about, it's actually a chapter in a book by Charles Stanley. It's called Developing Inner Strength. This is lesson 9 or chapter 9 in that book. It's a short chapter, it's not long. And I won't be reading scriptures. So, like I said, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in religion, I still think that you could get something out of this, some type of encouragement. This chapter is titled Strength in Times of Persecution. What is persecution? I define it as a situation that is abusive and painful, but also a situation in which you know with certainty that God intends for you to stay and for which there seems to be no human resolution. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to try to read straight through this chapter without too many interruptions. This is especially true if a person's witness for the Lord is at stake, or if the abuse and pain are being inflicted because the behaviors of a person are based on biblical standards. I have experienced persecution in my life, and I know that persecution can be intensely hateful and emotionally draining. At one point in my life, I experienced bitter opposition and ungodly assaults for nearly 3 years without any relief in sight. I forged ahead with what I knew God had called me to do by sheer faith, obedience, and endurance. During that time, I became very certain about 2 truths related to persecution. 1, God is faithful. God does not abandon us to persecution. He walks through persecution with us. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. He is with us at all times. And it is His sustaining love and presence that supports us in times of persecution. Number 2, God will win. In the end, God has the victory. Whether we live or die in a time of persecution is ultimately unimportant. Oh, really? Wow. Wow. Okay, what do we have to look forward to? So it says God's purposes will be accomplished on this earth, and we can either have a part in their accomplishment or fail to have a part. The righteous will prevail. God's plan will come to fruition. One of the most important things that you can do when persecution strikes is to remind yourself that God is God. He is in control of you in all your situations and circumstances. He will accomplish all that He desires to accomplish. He is all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present, everlasting, and always extending an infinite, unconditional love. When persecution comes, make your first thought, God is in charge. He will be the victor. How we deal in times of persecution. I believe there are 5 vital keys to dealing with persecution. Number 1, keep your eyes on the Lord. Unless you keep your eyes on God, you are likely to find yourself feeling angry, bitter, or resentful against those who are persecuting you. Those emotions can be just as damaging as the persecution itself. Don't compound the problem. Stay focused on God. Some people consider that all forms of persecution comes from the devil. In one regard, they are correct. God never instigates, authorizes, or promotes persecution. On the other hand, God does allow persecution to come our way. This is something that I struggled with for a while. I didn't understand why God would allow that to happen to good people. This is the major question, right? This is what drives people away from religion and God. Many people. Eventually, I got comfortable with the fact that we don't always know why things happen the way that they do, and why, or rather exactly how God operates. But God is in control. No matter how unfair it seems, it happened. And sometimes it happens because the lesson is supposed to come from your reaction to it. So moving on, it says, we see this clearly in the life of Job in the Bible. God did not authorize the devil's persecution of Job, but he did allow the devil to test him and bring situations into his life that might well be described as abusive. What was God's purpose in allowing this in the life of Job? One of his purposes was to win a battle against the devil. Job's faithfulness and refusal to sin were victories for God over the devil. The Lord also used the devil's persecution in Job's personal life to prepare Job for even greater revelations of himself being God. In nearly every incident of persecution I've witnessed, I have seen God's purposes at work in much the same way. When a person remains faithful to God and refuses to sin, God gains a victory over the devil. His power is thwarted, his influence is diminished. Plus, a greater strength emerges in the body of Christ, not only in the righteous victim, but in those who witness the actions of the righteous victim. And this is so important. This is so important. If you're a light-skinned person and any of this is resonating with you, or you care about these colorism issues in any way, and you're thinking about being a part of a solution, you need to understand that you're an example. You need to lead by example. If you feel you're being persecuted, if you are being persecuted, people are looking at how you're handling it. And I think it's in your best interest to make how you handle it attractive. Listen, it could be attractive in a bad way or a good way. You're going to have to make that choice. But if it's bad, there is no longevity with it. Just remember that. Whether you believe it or not, that's the truth. There's no longevity with something that's not good. Moving on, the victim of persecution who continues to trust in the Lord often has much greater revelations into the Lord's nature, his purposes on this earth, and the relationship he desires to have with the person. It says, ask God to sustain you and strengthen you. The Bible has a great deal to say about those who endure all the way through a period of persecution to emerge victorious on the other side. Even as you pray for God to remove the cause of your persecution, pray for strength to withstand the enemy of your soul until the persecution lifts. I think that is also very, very important. You have to ask for strength. If you're not spiritual, you have to focus on yourself, building yourself up to strengthen yourself during this time. This could be affirmations, pampering yourself, taking care of your body, getting more rest. I mean, the basics. Doing certain things that make it so that you don't fall apart. It says, recognize that you are fighting a spiritual battle. To be able to withstand persecution, you must know with certainty that the battle is God's, that you are being persecuted for the cause of God and not simply for an error or an act of your foolishness or stubbornness. So for all the light-skinned people that think that all of this is happening because they are inherently flawed or they probably deserve it and all of this other stuff because they believe that they had all this unearned privilege. No. Does anyone deserve to be ganged up on and everything else that is happening? No. So that right there is really important. Anybody who thinks that all of this stuff is happening and they deserve it, because there are light-skinned people, biracial people, other mixed people out there of a lighter skin tone who think that for some reason they deserve to be treated poorly, and that's an understatement, by the rest of the Black community or by the Black community. And that's not true. Moving on, Perhaps the most potent question you can ask is a tough one. Who will get the glory for a victory? If the person who is applauded for the victory is anyone other than God, mixed motives are in play. To God be the glory for a victory over persecutors and to no one else. Okay, so here is where it gets really tough, at least for me, because I don't know how I feel about this sort of thing, but I'm going to read it. It says, continue to treat your persecutors with godly love and kindness. I don't have a problem with that right there, but I'm going to continue. Our first impulse is nearly always to respond to persecution with equal force, to retaliate, to fight, to go on the offensive, even as we build a strong defense against our persecutors. The Bible presents a very different course of action to us. Jesus taught that we are to treat our persecutors with kindness, speaking well of them, praying for them, and responding to them with godly love. This is tough to do, but this is what we are commanded by the Lord to do. Now, listen, again, if you're not into religion, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, if you don't believe in this sort of thing, this sounds like something that might not make sense, that like something that doesn't make sense to do. I'm going to continue reading. Jesus also taught that we are to turn the other cheek to those who strike us, that we are to give in times of persecution rather than to withdraw or to wither into silent submission. And people are definitely withering into silent submission right now. This is why no one's talking about this on this platform, right? Turning the other cheek, giving to your persecutors. These are things that I don't really believe in. But I know that as a human being, that sometimes you don't have all the answers. And sometimes what you think is right at one point in time, with maturity, you realize wasn't actually what you were supposed to do. It wasn't the best thing to do. At some point in time, I could grow to find that there was a better way. For the most part, there are certain things that I know I'm certain are right to do. But with this thing right here, what's being said here, it's something that I did always have a problem with, because I just know how aggressive evil people can be, and that this giving and showing kindness will just be devoured by them, and it won't help you. It will embolden the persecutors. But I'm going to keep reading. It's only a couple sentences more. So it says, in many ways, giving is a very strong action to take in persecution. Giving and showing kindness are acts that confound and foil the attempts of persecutors. The anger and hatred felt by a persecutor can't help but be thwarted when the persecutor is faced with a loving, giving, praying victim. Ask God to give you the strength to become an active giver in times of persecution, not only an enduring saint. So here is when I wish that we had more elders in the community that can confirm things like this, that could give advice and spiritual guidance. We don't have enough of them, and that is a fact, especially on a platform like this and spaces like this. They're following behind 20-something-year-old feminists. There's a serious lack of maturity within the community. The elders, the youth are not learning how to live from the elders. Moving on, the last thing that it says is look for the victory. Never lose sight of the goal, the reason you are enduring the pain and rejection you may be experiencing. The reason. It says the kingdom of heaven is to be gained through your persecution. Not only that, but a great reward within the kingdom of heaven is yours. There's no comparison between the earthly, transient anger of persecutors and the glory of eternity. Always keep in mind that persecution is only for a season, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that wholeheartedly. There's no longevity with this shit. I don't mean to curse. As painful as it may be, all persecution is temporary. Eternity awaits. Look too for the victory that will come in your own life. Look for your faith to be strengthened, for you to have a greater resolve to win souls, for your character to be refined, and for you to have greater and greater cause to praise God. Expect the clouds to lift and the glory of God to be revealed when your time of persecution is over. To some people, that may sound bleak, especially people who don't believe in heaven and hell. As far as I'm concerned, how I see it is there has to be consequences for being an evil person the entire time you were here on earth and you were doing bad things to people. There has to be some type of reward for people who refuse to do that. There just has to be. I'll catch you in my next video.